Hello, everybody, and welcome to Back to the Future, the podcast, the only podcast looking back in time at the greatest film trilogy of all time, Back to the Future. I'm your friend in time, Brad Gilmore. I know it's been a while. I know a lot of you wish you could hop inside of the DeLorean time machine and come into the future to this very day for the next edition of Back to the Future, the podcast. Lot to talk about today. More so of where I've been with the show and what's been going on. But I do want to say, I guess, let me not bury the lead. Season 5 will be out in October. Season 5 of the Back to the Future of the podcast will be out in October. And I will not be dropping them all at once like I did for last season, Netflix style. That will not be occurring. I'm going to do a weekly release. And I'm hoping to have a number of episodes that will last for quite some time. And I'm shooting somewhere between, last season we did 10 episodes, I think. I'm shooting between 10 and 15. I might, if things work out like they're planned on paper, it might be as long as 20. I don't know. But I do want to say thank you to all the pinheads out there who've been sending me emails and tweets and messages about your support of the show. I know I was looking for co-hosts. I'm looking for ways to, see if people are up to donating to the show, and those are all still up in the air. I haven't really thought about it. I've been away for quite some time, working on my other projects. Back to the Future, the podcast kind of has been on the back burner, but some interesting things coming up. So, the season will debut in October, but before that, there will be a special crossover edition of Back to the Future, the podcast, with the movie trivia Schmodown. So let me stop for a second here. If y'all don't know what the movie trivia Schmodown is, what it is, it's a league of a bunch of guys run by Collider. Collider is a media company in Los Angeles, and they have a thing called the Schmodown. And the Schmodown is like part pro wrestling in storyline and what have you, and then the other part is legitimate trivia competition. And the movie Trivia Schmodown is watched by tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And we're going to be doing something. I host their after show called the Schmodown Rundown on Podcast One. And we're going to be doing something with them. We're going to do something called the Back to the Future Rundown Schmodown. And what that's going to be is it's going to be a 5-round or 3 or 5 round movie trivia Schmodown match. And it's going to be me, the host of Back to the Future, the podcast, versus a guy named Frank Janish. Frank Janish is the statistician for the Schmodown, and he's also my co-host on the Schmodown Rundown. And he and I are going to go one-on-one with Back to the Future trivia. So there's going to be 3 to 5 rounds. I think they're still trying to determine if it's going to be 3 or 5. But it's going to be at least 3 rounds, each round a little bit different, of Back to the Future knowledge. So I'm really looking forward to it, and that's going to drop, I think it's dropping in 1 month. We haven't filmed it yet, but I think it's going to be somewhere between September the 5th or maybe late October. So it could actually be the season kickoff, and I actually might make it the season kickoff. So it'll be a video, but I'll definitely throw the audio up here on the podcast feed, and that might be our season kickoff. I just got to see where things shake out, because there's still a lot there on the table. But this season, so I'll keep you updated on that. But this season, we're going to be doing all kinds of things. We're finally going to break open that animated series. I'm going to be looking at it. I'm going to have some guests. We're also going to have 3 special episodes where we do commentaries of the films. So that's something that some of y'all have requested for a little bit here, and I'm excited that we're going to be doing it. Going to do commentary of the movies of all 3 parts, and there'll be full-length podcasts that you just hit play as soon as Back to the Future comes on. You hit play, and we'll talk you throughout the whole movie, kind of give you behind-the-scenes trivia and just some commentary, obviously, about what we thought of the films. And I'm going to have a special guest for each episode, so it's going to be different every time. But I'm really looking forward to doing that. I think that's something a lot of y'all have been wanting to do. It's something I've been wanting to do, and finally this season we're going to sit down and do it. Also, we're going to wrap up Back to the Future Part 3. Going to kind of finish that little recap as well. And I do have plans to have several special guests on, some of which y'all going to be very excited about. I mean, supremely excited about. I've been working really hard on getting a couple big-name guests. So those things are all still shaking out, So I'm still waiting for all of that stuff to come to fruition as I'm doing 1,000 other things at once. So the show will be coming back. And like I said, I hope to do a 15 to 20-week run. I also want to break down the Back to the Future ride. I know that we talked with Nick and Scott from Back to the Future Minute about the Back to the Future ride, but we're going to kind of dive into it a little more in detail, the makings of the ride. I have somebody who I think is going to be joining me on the show very soon. I should be taping that interview, and we're going to talk a lot about the theme park ride and the creation of it and the destruction of Back to the Future, the ride. So many things, many irons in the fire. I've also been on a rampage of acquiring Back to the Future memorabilia. So backtothefuture.com, shout out to Steven over there at backtothefuture.com. I recently purchased one of these limited edition Hill Valley Save the Clock Tower coins. Just take my money. I bought one of those Neo Lev hoverboards. Little, I think, 1/8 scale hoverboards. It's pretty cool. I do enjoy it. I've also since then purchased one of the Marty McFly's hat from Back to the Future 2. And what was that other purchase? I bought something else. Bought the Back to the Future playing cards. I've been doing a lot of buying. And I guess if anybody out there has some Back to the Future merch that they want to, show me that they're willing to sell, please send it my way because I would be more than happy to look at it right now. I'm in a very buying mood, trying to find some of those rare things. I bid on, there was an auction site, I think it's called screenused.com. And I bid on this thing. I always check it periodically because Back to the Future stuff has come up before. And there was this auction for Biffco money. And I guess it was something that they had printed for Back to the Future Part 2 in the alternate 1985, where Biff was either had his own currency or his face was on the United States currency. I don't really know, but they scrapped it from use in the film. So it's not used in the film, but they were trying to auction it off as screen. I don't know how that's screen used, but they were auctioning it off on screenused.com. And I was in a bidding war for it. And I think I got up to like $150 for just this thing that wasn't even used in the movie. It's just a piece of paper. And I got up to like $150, and I think the guy outbid me to $200, and then I just gave up on it. But check that site. If you're a Back to the Future collector, check Screen Used because a lot of the times stuff ends up there. Now, I also want to say, I don't know, and I guess I want to test the waters here. There's a video on YouTube about Back to the Future, and it's a little nutty. It's a conspiracy theory video about Back to the Future, and it's a 9/11 conspiracy. And the guy who put it together, you can definitely tell a lot of the times is reaching at straws. And I don't mean that mean. It just seems like in this frame, Marty wore a red shirt. And then if you go to the Robert Zemeckis movie, The Tower, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character has a red shirt on as well. Could he be telling us something? And so it's a little out there, but it was well put together. And I'm almost inclined, I kind of want to talk to this guy, but then at the same time I don't. I just really like the fan theories out there, and that's probably the most crazy one. But I don't know. I'm on the fence on if I should talk to him or not. So let me know, Pinheads. Tweet me at Brad Gilmore. Let me know if I should talk to the guy who did the 9/11 conspiracy video. If you haven't seen it, I mean, it's worth at least the entertainment and watching. And I'm not going to get into a political debate on 9/11 or the conspiracies. I don't even want to get into any of that. But I just kind of like the thought that this guy saw all these signs in Back to the Future and put this together. It's a well done video. Even though it's a little zany, it's well done. One of the other things that I want to do this season is, which is another reason I'm putting out this time capsule, is reach out to you all directly. I want to have a couple of you pinheads on the show, and I want to theorize, and I almost want to have a competition in a way. I want to come up with a storyline, at least a plot, for Back to the Future 4. Now, we know Back to the Future 4 will probably never occur. It's more likely we'll get a reboot than we would a sequel, and I hope neither of which happens. Although, I go back and forth on that too. Let me take a little sidebar here. Let me take you down a winding road. I don't know how to feel if they were to remake Back to the Future or do a reboot of it or a soft reboot or anything of the nature. Robert Zemeckis one time famously said, "Over my dead body, they'll ever remake Back to the Future," and I cheered him. I applauded him. I think I went on Twitter and said, "I love Robert Zemeckis," which I've said multiple times for different reasons. But the more I think about it, the more I wonder, is it really that bad if it were to occur? Because I look at this Jumanji movie that came out with The Rock and Kevin Hart, and just follow me here for a second. I thought it was a little sacrilegious to do a Jumanji sequel without Robin Williams in it. And I kind of was like, well, how are they going to do this? How is it going to be enjoyable? And it was really a completely different story. It revolved around the game of Jumanji, but the game evolved into the video game or what have you. So it had some loose ties to the first Jumanji film. And I was like, okay, that's not terrible. And so when I went and saw it, I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. So, and they paid homage to the first movie. And so I was like, that actually wasn't so bad. And it started getting the gears turning in my head of, would it be the worst thing in the world for there be a Back to the Future reboot? And if they do it, it could suck or it could be awesome. But if it sucks, it's okay because we still have the 3 original films. And we can do with what a lot of people do with the Indiana Jones films, just pretend the 4th one didn't happen. Or it could be awesome. And it could open the door to more films of the universe which we love so much. So I've really changed my stance in recent years as to where I sit with the remaking of Back to the Future or the rebooting of Back to the Future, the retelling. I'm kind of pro for it. I'd like to see it happen. Because like I said, worst case scenario, we just don't like the movie. Nothing ever happens again in that universe. And we still get to keep our trilogy and just forget that other one. Right? Almost like Ghostbusters. This Ghostbusters movie that came out with Melissa McCarthy, I thought was garbage. So I don't even acknowledge it. I just acknowledge Ghostbusters 1 and sometimes 2. But anyway, I'm on a tangent. I'm trying to wrap this up because this is supposed to be a time capsule. It's not supposed to be a long episode at all of the Back to the Future podcast. So the last thing that I was going to say is what I need the pinheads to do out there is I want the pinheads to join me on the show and we can talk about fan theories, where it would go, pitch stories. So if you're interested, just shoot me an email, bradgilmore11@gmail.com. I have heard from some of you, and I do want to just give a couple of shout-outs real quick. Let's see. Here we go. Hold on. I'm sifting through my email as you're doing this. I'm going to use this also as an opportunity to plug. Go check out Brad Gilmore show, and I have a great interview with Phil Hellmuth if y'all like that kind of stuff. Phil Hellmuth joins me on the show. I'm trying to find this email, but I'm just going to give a shout out to Hunter Thompson. Hunter Thompson wrote me a nice long email yesterday, which actually kind of inspired me to do this podcast, and I just want to shout out to Hunter, and hopefully maybe Hunter will join me on the show. We're also, this is actually a suggestion he made. He said, I hope you guys can touch on the Telltale game too. If you haven't already, you should check it out. It's great. Back to the Future, the game. Yeah, I really do like the game, and I know there's some cuts online of the game footage made to be like a movie. So we actually might do that. We might actually review the 4 and 5 quote-unquote movies or the series from the Telltale games. And I've talked to Norman Binford. He and I have been in conversations, Normie Norm, and I think I want to get Normie Norm back on the show. We talked about doing the podcast again together since his schedule's kind of, mellowed out, I guess, a little bit, and mine is always busy, but I'm going to find time for it. So I'm going to try to get Normie Norm on the show sometime this season number 5. So I can't believe we're already at 5 seasons of Back to the Future, the podcast. Started this back in 2015. We're wrapping up 2018. Kind of a crazy thing, but I just want to say thanks to all the pinheads out there. I'm about to go get prepared for this big trivia battle that we're going to be filming here over the next couple of weeks. So I got to train. I got to look at all the things that are happening in these films. So I'm going to be watching all the trilogy back to back to back probably for the next 2 weeks every night, just picking up on different trilogies, different trivia. Because if I lose this to Frank Janisch, I'm going to feel like an awful person, and I'm going to feel like I let all the pinheads down. We did have a Back to the Future category we already did one of these rundown schmodown things, and maybe I'll throw a link up here in the show notes. If not, just go to my Twitter at Brad Gilmore, and I'm going to tweet it out today when this goes up about the rundown schmodown that we already did, so y'all can kind of get a flavor for it and figure out exactly what it is. But we did pick categories at random in the second round, and I actually got Back to the Future as my category, which is just dumb luck, but I didn't go perfect on it. And when y'all see which question I got wrong, I might not ever be able to win your trust back, which would be very awful, but it can happen. So go check that out. Go to my Twitter right now at Brad Gilmore, and we'll check that out, because it was a fun game, and it was a fun game that we played. I'm not going to spoil who lost, but there was some Back to the Future in there, and that's going to be the style. That's going to be the style of what we do for this one coming up in September, maybe October. So just stay tuned here. I'm going to try to do a couple more time capsules in between now and then with any news that's coming out, with any updates that I might have for you, because I love y'all, and I love the pinheads, and I love all y'all who shout me out on Twitter and send me emails. So continue to do that at Brad Gilmore or BradGilmore11 at gmail.com, and let's stay in touch, guys. But I am Brad Gilmore, and for maybe Normie Norm here in the future, for all of the pinheads out there, I will see you in the future.